Hi guys, this is Movie Critic Rob of the Movie Channel here with John DiGregorio of Movie Lovers Unite. And a couple of weeks ago, actually a couple days ago, I was watching the review of Spectre, and it was either Jeremy Johns's or Chris Stuckman's review of Spectre. And they brought up an interesting topic, which I thought might be worth discussing. And the topic is this: do franchise movies get away with lesser writing because of the fact that they're in a franchise, whereas original films, because they're not tied into anything that we know, don't have this luxury. I think it's something that, especially with all the movies that are out today, with everybody wanting to make a sequel or a quasi sequel or a reboot or a prequel of some existing property, I think that's something that should be discussed, because a lot of the films of today, not only are they reboots and sequels and all that, but their highest grossing films of the year are usually non original ideas, meaning attached to something that's previously done. Now, are the stories themselves original? Yeah, Marvel has original movies, but they're attached to characters or plot lines that are familiar. So we're going to discuss that today. And to weigh in also is my friend, like I said, John DiGregorio. He said he's already got ideas floating up in his noggin. So I'm going to let him run with the ball a little bit, and hopefully it'll be a lively discussion. I hope you tune into this, or if not, watch the video afterwards, because I think it's going to be a good discussion. John?
Okay, so basically, the movie that I'm thinking of is the movie Steve Jobs, and the movie Jobs that just came out this past year.
You talking about the Fastbender one or
Oh,
the?
Fassbender one.
Okay, okay.
Nobody really went out and went to see it at all, and it was an original idea. It was an original script, but it's still nominated for an Academy Award nomination. But no one went out and saw the movie, so that makes me think of a couple of things. Number one, are people not interested in another Steve Jobs documentary, or is it the fact that they trust a franchise over something that's original because that's what they're used to, and because they're used to something that's a franchise, because they feel safe with the characters, they don't have to change anything because they're familiarized with the characters, so therefore there's no reason to even try and look at anything original because they know the source material. So that's what I'm thinking on that part. And as for Spectre, I felt like the writing was off with that. You can see Daniel Craig was just wore out from playing that character over
Mhm.
again. And you can even tell in the writing it was just sloppy. So, you know, it's like, yeah, that's another franchise, but at the same time, it's also an original idea, like you said. But I felt like maybe audiences are a little tired of, James Bond as well. But still, I mean, he made a lot of good. The new James Bond movies were really good.
What
But
I thought of, as far as Spectre goes, um, I kept thinking, how are they gonna top Skyfall? Because two of the better James Bond films have been Casino Royale and Skyfall. I know that Quantum of Solace is in between there, but I really can't stomach Quantum more than once.
well, that
What is
was
it?
the weakest out of the James Bond films to me was Quantum Solace. So
The weakest,
basically,
you said?
what's that?
Did you say that was the weakest, or what'd you say? I didn't hear you.
Quantum Solace was probably like the weakest of the James Bond with Daniel Craig.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's with me too. I love Casino. I think Casino for me uh is higher than Skyfall. I don't know why. It's just I like it. It's a beautiful film. It's well shot. And I like poker on film because it translates well on film. That like the scene from Dead Man's Chest when they're playing liar's dice, essentially playing poker. And it's such an intriguing scene, so like even though I've watched it over and over and over again, it's kind of like, ooh, ooh, is he gonna get it? Even though I know what's gonna happen, there's still that sense of intrigue and mystery. Um, Again, even though I know the outcome. So, but as far as Spectre goes, it had something that not a lot of the movies before it had going for it, which is this. They had Christoph Waltz playing the villain. Now, I don't know if you know about Christoph Waltz at all, but he's becoming somebody that I'm watching a lot of his movies. I watched Django Unchained, where he plays Dr. King Schultz, and that's one of his best roles I've ever seen.
Well,
Go ahead.
okay. Well, that's what got my attention with him was Django Unchained. So I started watching Inglourious Bastards,
And I saw that one too.
and that guy has so much of a level of creepiness to him. The way he carries himself in a role and everything is
He
like
enjoys it.
he does. And you can tell he enjoys it, and he's very passionate about it. That would, and you know what? I was actually excited to see him as a villain for the James Bond movie, and then
I mean, he's playing a villain in Inglorious too.
right, but the villain in the Glorious Bastards was, you know, it felt he was creepy to me because
Yeah.
he was a Nazi, and you had that level of creepiness with that character that you can actually feel this guy of power, this guy who can actually make people do whatever he wants them to do.
That
And,
intro scene for Inglorious is probably the most interesting scene of any movie I've ever seen.
right,
It captivated. And, you know, I hadn't started watching a lot of Quentin Tarantino films. I've only seen two. I've seen three now because I saw Hateful Eight. I saw I love Django Unchained. I love Hateful Eight too. And I love Inglorious.
right,
But so I started watching his movies, and that one was on Netflix. So I was like, okay, all right. You know, I'd already seen the other two that I mentioned before, and I was like, okay, let's get into this. And I was disturbed. I'm like, he's going to kill him. He's going to find them. Something's going to happen, and he's going to find them. And sure enough, he does. And I'm like, this is one sick freak. And I was like genuinely disturbed sitting in my room in this general area. Just like, this guy's sick, but I love this actor. And I'm like, if I ever make a movie, I want this actor to play my villain because he's so awesome, man.
right. And you see, that's why I was excited whenever I found out that he was in the James Bond movie. And then all of a sudden, I felt like his character was a throwaway character.
He had less screen time than Dave Bautista's.
Right, and I thought Dave Bautista was going to be the main antagonist, the way that they introduced him.
Right.
And then that turned out not to be true. I'm like, well, okay, so there goes him. And then whenever I saw Christoph Waltz, I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be awesome. And then all of a sudden he goes, and he's gone.
Right. Yeah, and he's in the movie for like 5 minutes.
Right.
And that's why I said, you know, Hinks, or I think it's Hinks, or I can't remember the name of the Dave Bautista character. I thought he was more the main antagonist. I mean, even though I know he isn't, just because of his screen time. He had a lot more screen time than Christoph Waltz's character did. Which I'm like, that was such a waste of a great actor for 3 scenes. It didn't make sense at all.
But what would be another original movie that you would actually say that it didn't do well at the box office, but maybe the audience might be kind of leaning more towards the franchise movie? August Rush.
Yeah. I first watched this movie in an airplane, going to California, actually. And they were playing it on the plane, and my mom paid for my headphones, and I watched it, and I was like, this is a fantastic movie. I just picked it up at a movie stop close to me, which for like $2. Because I saw it, and I'm like, oh man, I need this movie, because it's so good. But this is one prime example of an excellent film that I've never seen anybody talk about it at all. Regardless of talking about it in the level of any of the popular movies. But for this movie is an excellent movie that I've never heard anything said about this movie. This movie has Robin Williams in it, actually.
Really?
Yes. And it's one of probably his most heartwarming roles I've ever seen him play in.
I'm gonna go check
Um,
it out.
it has Terrence Howard, Kerry Russell, um, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. I actually think no, that's not the same two people. I know Kerry Russell's in The Americans, but I don't know if the other guys from The Americans too. And then the guy from the kid from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory,
Okay.
who's the lead. But I mean, it not for the lack of casting, because I mean the movie's cast really well, but nothing. I mean, the same with we talked about Quentin Tarantino films, Django Unchained.
Well,
Nobody talks about that movie, but it's
actually,
fantastic.
I'm gonna tell you this: whenever that movie first came out, everybody was talking about it.
Django?
Yep. There was even
Oh, okay.
get this. There was even a cereal with Django Unchained that got banned because it came with whips, it came with cowboy hats, it came with chaps, and and it got banned from in America.
Right.
Anyway, this movie has a big old huge fan following too because it even has comic books now.
Right,
Django,
yeah, I know that they made a comic book that actually included like the entire script that they didn't shoot.
you know though, The Hateful Eight is one that we can actually talk about because it didn't make much at the box office because Quentin Tarantino movies usually do well around the November time, and now
It was shot in 70 millimeter. Come on, the
well,
dude went all out for this movie.
but no one cares. No one cares about 70 millimeter. All they care about is if the film is. Well, you know what I'm saying. Most people don't. All they care about is if the movie is good or not.
The mainstream audience, yeah.
Just give me a good film. That's all I care about. Let me shove popcorn in my face, and I'm happy. This, on the other hand, the production now, it did a couple of things that was wrong with the way that they did the advertisements because they didn't know the audience they were trying to target. They didn't really give much of a plot at all about what this movie's going to be about, other than the fact that this guy's going to hang this woman for a crime, and that you
That's
can't.
fine, but see, and I like that they didn't give away, because I do remember the marketing. I like that they didn't give away anything, because if they gave, because the whole movie is like Clue, where you're trying to figure out who did what. It's like a game that you're engaging the people watching.
It felt like I was in a whodunit set where I'm the guest, and you have to guess who's doing what,
Right.
and that's what I felt. But it was a hit and miss for Tarantino though, and hardly anybody went to see it at all. I don't know if it's a big backlash with him with how he felt about the cops, or if because he was throwing a fit because the theater wouldn't show his movie that he had set up during that time because Star Wars wanted to take it.
I will say that, like and I went to see Star Wars, and I love Star Wars, but they kind of they kind of screwed
Right.
Tarantino on that one.
The way I see it is this: if I was Tarantino and I signed a contract saying, "Okay, I'm going to have my movie done at this movie theater at this percent at this time," I'm obliged by that contract to say, "I'm going to go on ahead and do it."
Right.
And if a studio tells me that I got to move his movie after I signed his contract, I'm in breach of contract because of the fact that I'm not doing whatever my word was set out with Tarantino was, and I'm doing what Disney tells me to do.
He should have gotten Donald Trump to sue him.
But you know, what I like about Tarantino is he tells good original stories,
Yeah. Well,
and
he's one of the few.
right, and yeah, they're kind of vicious or whatever, but
There's one scene, and you know exactly what scene it is, of Hateful Eight I would have cut out.
yep, and I'm with you on that one too.
But other than that, the movie was excellent. It was just like Django Unchained.
Let's
It
see.
was. They actually originally Hateful Eight was going to be a sequel to Django Unchained.
Well, there was also another thing too. They were actually going to let Jamie Foxx play a cameo
Right, as Django, yeah.
as Django in The Hateful Eight. and they figured no, he didn't really fit in with that story or whatever, so they cut him out.
Right. I thought that would have been kind of cool to see, but I agree with him. It would have been, it would have taken you out of the movie, and the idea was not enough to justify doing it, if that makes sense.
Right. Another movie that comes to my mind is Edge of Tomorrow.
Yes, yes. You mean Live, Die, Repeat, or Edge of Tomorrow? They don't even know what title the movie is.
No, they didn't even know what to call this, but the reason why that movie didn't do well was because the PR department did a horrible job trying to promote this movie. And then by the time word of mouth came around, the movie was gone. But
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing that movies have like a 2-week window, especially with today with all of the blockbusters coming out, because this thing released in the summer.
right,
You really have a 2-week window, if that, to do what you're gonna do. And after the 2-week window's over, no matter how good your marketing is, you're done because there's some new kid on the block that's going to steal your spot.
right. And you see, I remember going into the movie with low expectations. I'm
Me
like,
too.
and get this, I didn't pay for the movie. Someone that I was dating, someone I was dating paid for the movie at
Nice.
that. So I'm like, okay, this movie's gonna suck. This movie's gonna be bad. Please don't let me. If she asks me how it is, I'm gonna have to tell her this movie's horrible because I don't
Well,
like Tom
this
Cruise.
movie was off the heels of Ghost Protocol.
Well, hold on.
So I had, I mean, I'm just saying, to contrast, I
Right.
had, I was like, oh, it might be good.
But I'm like this. This is how I was. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to tell her that this movie sucks and I don't like Tom Cruise. I don't like I don't like his movies. Okay, but I'll watch it. I'll torture myself for 2.5 hours. Then all of a sudden the movie comes on. I'm like, I love this movie.
It was a good idea. It was really good idea. And it was funny.
And you know what I like about it is you have an original movie mixed in with a Groundhog's Day type movie
Hmm.
and sci-fi action. But the kicker is this: Tom Cruise does not play, but he has always played. He played a wimp that turned into a soldier.
Yep.
So that's what I like. I liked his character development as far as that went.
They
But
didn't typecast him at all.
exactly, and you know, I think it would have worked perfectly well if the movie was promoted correctly.
Yeah.
But you know, but that goes with originality versus a franchise. If
Right.
I now that was my first thought. My first thought was very negative because of the trailer that I saw. So if I'm gonna, why would I take my chances on that? I'll go see Kung Fu Panda 3
True.
before I take my chances with that because,
I heard that wasn't that bad, actually.
well, I didn't see it.
I heard. I didn't see it either.
Okay, but I would take my chances with Kung Fu Panda 3 because I'm familiar with the panda bear. I'm familiar with those characters because I feel safe with those characters, and I might actually enjoy it a little bit more than Edge of Tomorrow because I'm not familiarized with Edge of Tomorrow and their characters and the way they have to set up. So therefore, I would go see that.
Yeah, that it's a good thought too. The versus argument on Friday night. What do I shell out my money for?
Right.
The sure thing that I will get enjoyment out of, or the risk. I had a similar experience that you had with Edge of Tomorrow, but I had it with Super 8.
Oh, okay. I know which one you're talking about.
I didn't know what to, it was one of those movies where you don't really know what to expect. I heard it was a Spielberg homage. Um, and I knew it developed. It was around these kids, and my mom was like, "Yeah, let's go watch it." And I can't remember what else was out that at that time, but there was good movies out. It was, I mean, because they released that during holiday season.
Right.
So I mean that's prime. That's another prime. It's like the summer part two, for movies. If you can look it up, like, because they have like a list of movies. If you go look up the year in film, and then it'll give you like the other stuff that was released around that time. While I'm talking, but so I went to go see the movie, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Because it really was a Spielberg homage, not just a Spielberg homage, but this is cream of the crop Spielberg homage. This was like Jurassic Park Spielberg and Jaws Spielberg and E.T.
No, this was also like E.T. Steven Spielberg.
Right, yeah, it was an ET film, but was original because you have these kids making a movie which kind of mirrors J.J. Abrams' own childhood that he threw into the movie, with the J.J. Abrams style of suspense. And this was right. I think this was right after Cloverfield that he went into this movie.
Right.
So,
Well, J.J. Abrams was only the producer for Cloverfield during that time.
well, but I mean, he was the brain child of the whole thing.
Okay.
So it was. I mean, regardless of whether or not he directed it, it was pretty much his idea. Um, so I walk into the movie and I'm getting into it, and I'm like, this is extremely captivating. And I'm tearing up. So again, I mean, that was one of those, and I like taking risks because I like to see other movies than I love my comic book heroes. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna be the first one in line for Civil War. I was at the first showing of Deadpool, Batman v Superman, all that. But I do like original films, and I do like enjoying films that are out of the norm that a lot of people haven't heard of. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Kingdom of Heaven by Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Okay, not a lot of people have heard about that movie. I talk about that movie all the time, and everybody's like, "What movie?" Everybody knows about Gladiator, but nobody knows about Kingdom of Heaven, which I would argue is just as good a film.
That movie's underrated, in my opinion.
What is it?
That movie's underrated.
Oh yeah, especially the director's cut, which is like 3.5 hours.
Okay, so let's see here. When was Super? Okay, this is what Super
Tell me
8.
the year, and I can remember.
Okay, Super 8 came out June 10th of 2011.
Oh, it was in June. It wasn't in the. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was June 10th, 2011. It came. It was Judy Moody and not in the not Bomber's Summer. Then there was Troll Hunter, Road to Nowhere, The Trip, Bridge Flight, Viva Riva, and Just Like Us.
Mm.
So it didn't really open against anything big.
Well, no. But I mean, like, not the same week, but what came before it? Like, what came around it?
June 3rd, which was like a couple of weeks before that, it was X-Men First Class, Love, Wedding, Marriage.
That's what it was.
Right. Beginner, Empire of Silver, Submarine, Beautiful Boy, The Last Mountain, The Lion of Judah, Rejoice and Shout, Film Socials Me, something like that. And then June 9th, you had The Wave. And that's it.
Oh, so it didn't really open up again. I mean, First Class.
Up during its second or third week. So really, during that time, it starts. Pretty much during that time, after the third week, it starts going down a little bit more because people have already seen it.
Right. No, I'm looking at Hannah was another movie that I saw, which I thought was really disappointing. Soul Surfer came out at that time.
That was
Fast 5 came out a month before. Oh, duh.
What is it?
Thor.
The Dark World.
No.
No. What am I talking about? I'm going back to 2014. Okay.
Thor.
Okay. How could I ever forget that?
And Pirates.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Thor.
Yep.
Opened around the same time. Kung Fu Panda 2, yeah. Yeah, and then the stupid Smurfs. But again, I mean,
Yeah, Thor came out around May.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But I mean, this is a movie it has staying power, obviously, and especially when it's not running against anything, like you said. But I mean, it's not like that was the only option either, because again, you had Fast Five still playing, you had Pirates 4 playing, you had Thor playing, First Class playing. So that was a risk, but I mean, I'm glad I took the risk. But again, it comes down to the argument of Thor 2 was good, but we can all agree that it suffered a little
It suffered a little bit.
from the Earth scenes, I think, more than the Asgard. I like the Asgard stuff better than.
I think people were going into it thinking that it's all going to take place on Asgard, and instead,
I hoped.
Right, everybody was hoping that it was going to take place on Asgard. Instead, it took place in New York again, going back and forth between
New Mexico.
Right. Well, yeah, that's right. Well, it's been a while since I saw Thor.
I remember that one more fondly than I ever will The Dark World. But okay, all right. So another example around that time to keep drawing on parallels. Pirates of the Caribbean 4, the movie that I will not acknowledge its existence.
Yeah, that was just horrible.
I wasted an IMAX ticket over that thing. I could have gone to see Deadpool with that IMAX ticket.
Again, for the second
For the second time, yeah. So I mean, and that movie was awful. But again, one of the highest grossing films of all time and the highest grossing Pirates film to date is on Stranger Tides.
Right.
And it was the crappiest of all four.
It seems like they just butchered the script. They didn't know what they were doing with it. It was just all over the place. They didn't know.
They should have brought in somebody else.
Well, I just felt like, was it the same director that directed?
No, it wasn't. You know who the director was? The director of Chicago.
Oh God, no.
That's the only thing he'd done that was of any note up to that point was Chicago. And as soon as I heard that it's Rob Marshall, by the way, who also directed Into the Woods later, which I didn't think was that good either. As soon as I heard that he was attached to this film, I was like, yep, this movie's going to bomb. Well, this is going to be 2011's Fantastic Four.
Well, you know what, though? I think I know what they were trying to do. That director won an Academy Award for Chicago.
For a musical.
Right. So they were thinking, okay, this guy has the chops to do something bigger. So let's go ahead and give him a chance at doing Pirates of the Caribbean, which he has nothing, doesn't know the property, doesn't know anything about it. So let's go ahead and give him a chance to see what he can do with it. And that's what the problem was. You have someone.
I'm excited for the new Pirates.
What's that?
I'm excited for the new Pirates. Dead Men Tell No Tales. Here's why. The guy that directed the movie directed like an Epic at Sea before this. It was a Disney film. It was a little bit of a smaller Disney film based on a true story.
Okay.
I think it's, if I'm right. So I'm like, okay. I mean, and here's the thing. Using that argument, I can see why they would do it, because it's kind of like what they did with, going back to Thor, with Kenneth Branagh, who had only directed Shakespearean stuff really up to that point. They took a chance and they took a risk, and it didn't really pay out. But here's the thing that would have, if I was making the decision, would have weighed on it. There's a vast difference between being able to shoot a musical than being able to shoot an action film. That's just Gore Verbinski, the director of the first three movies, he had directed commercials. With commercials, you have to be crafty because you're trying to sell. I mean, but hear me out. You have to sell a product or an idea in 2 minutes.
Right, which is hard to do. And if you don't, that's pretty much it.
Right.
They're probably not going to sell.
So I can see why that succeeded, because he came in from an environment with one, very little money. He had a great visual effects background, and the visual effects on Pirates are second only to Jurassic Park, in my opinion. And he was, I mean, if you look at all the stuff of the making of the movie, he was a ball of energy. Now, contrast that to Rob Marshall. The only thing that Rob Marshall had done is really musical films.
Right.
That's not to say it's a bad thing, but it's more of a stretch to believe it.
But you have to understand what you're trying to create and what you're trying to do. And he just didn't get it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Throughout the entire movie, you knew this guy has no idea what Pirates of the Caribbean is. And the proof is in this, just in this alone. You have a character, not Jack, I'm talking about Blackbeard, who is the only character that is tying to something historical other than Beckett in Pirates 2 and 3. This guy actually existed, which Beckett didn't even have going for him. And he's known as the most notorious pirate ever.
And they made him cartoony.
You have to go deeper and you have to go bigger than Davy Jones. And Davy Jones had already knocked it out of the park. So what they ended up going with was something a lot like what they did with Davy Jones, but just devoid of any character.
Well, to me, they made like a cartoon character out of Blackbeard rather than
Yeah.
And like you said, if you're not going to get the best out of your actors, your film's going to fall apart.
Well, I mean, if you're not given anything to work with, I would argue that even the best actors
think.
I mean, look at Mark Wahlberg in The Happening.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
So, but basically, I don't know. There's just something about this franchise that I'm just not that excited for it. But maybe once I actually see it on the screen, see a preview, maybe I might actually.
I'm cautiously optimistic because Rob Marshall's not doing it anymore. And again, the guy that they have is a lot like Gore Verbinski. I would say even more qualified than Gore Verbinski was at the time. Because he's directed something a little bit like Pirates.
Right.
So I'm hopeful.
Now that you mentioned that though before, I'm a little sold on it because of what you just mentioned. So you play devil's advocate with me.
Yeah.
So I'm sold on that a little bit.
I mean, I'm just saying it can only get better from here.
Hopefully. But
yes, I'm talking money-wise. I don't think it can get much better. It probably could. But story-wise, it can get a lot better. I know a lot of people give crap to the Pirates 3 and Pirates 2, but no. Go watch Pirates 4 and then come back to me crying and tell me if Pirates 2 and Pirates 3 stink. Because that's just true. They're awesome. But again, you had somebody in Gore who understood the characters, who understood what he was doing. I mean, the movie's based off a ride. The entire franchise is based off of a ride that takes 5 minutes to ride. But it's so good. And you know, it's funny because I go to Disney a lot.
I know.
And you have your own fun. You have stuff you do for fun. And you have a girlfriend.
You ride in that ride for 2.5 hours and be like, this is not the way I imagined it.
So I've ridden Pirates, and after Pirates 4 came out, Blackbeard came on because there's a part of the ride where it's like a waterfall and they project like an image onto the waterfall and it's somebody talking to you, introducing like, you know, here we go, you know, we're going on this trip. And Blackbeard came on, and I swear, I'm like, take him off. Nobody cares. And then last time I went, which is I think this is hilarious. Again, Blackbeard came on, and I whispered to my mom. I said, You know, I wish they had Davy Jones back on this, because they had Davy Jones when it was the other movie. Blackbeard did half of it, and all of a sudden Davy Jones comes on the screen, and I'm like, thank you, Lord, thank you, yes. And I was so happy. And I'm like, just that, I hate that character that much that I can't even stomach him for 3 seconds. It's like, and then I was like, yay.
His character was forced.
Huh?
His character was forced.
It was, I mean, yeah. And it, like, again, it was devoid of any character.
Right. And it didn't serve any purpose at all having him there.
The ship was boring. What he did with the swords were boring. The only thing that was actually interesting was the fact that he had all these ships in a bottle. But I'm like, okay, show us that. Show us how you do that. Because that is way more interesting than the entire movie.
Exactly.
Which I'm hoping that in Pirates 5, since they're trying to get it out, and the funny thing is at the end of Pirates 4, Gibbs and Jack Sparrow are talking, and they're like they're having the whole conversation about how to get the ship out, and I'm like, I want to see that. That's what I want to see, is how they get the ship into the bottle. And so Pirates 5 needs to open up with how do you get the ship out of the bottle, because that is the most interesting thing in Pirates 4 is the ship in the bottle. The only thing, and it actually calls back to something that, you know, is piratey. You know, so, but if the only thing that you have going for you for your movie is a ship in a bottle, you failed.
Right.
You failed. And you might as well be Fantastic Four.
They didn't go anywhere with that. I mean, it would be different if they were going somewhere.
Yeah, and they didn't go anywhere with it either. They didn't take the ship out of the bottle.
And that was it.
It was just there. And you saw the monkey in the bottle with the ship, and you had a quick gag. Okay. All right. That went nowhere.
It didn't. But hopefully, you know, they'll learn from their mistakes and actually go with their original roots. Because if they go to
I was actually hoping, with Penelope Cruz's character, that she'd actually be pregnant with his son at the end of the movie, because she teased it and she was joking about it, and I'm like, watch, like, at the end of the movie, she's gonna like be like, Jack, and then pull out like this kid from behind her that's actually his son, and I'm like, that would have made the movie. Didn't happen either.
Well, to me, Penelope Cruz was one of the most redeeming qualities of the movie too.
Yeah.
Especially when those two are trapped on the same island together.
Fun ensued.
That's what I liked about it, was whenever they were trapped on the island together.
And they have good chemistry. That they had really good. They bounced off each other well. So the scenes, like, one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is when Jack and her are kind of dancing and they're talking about how to defeat Blackbeard and all that. And I was like, okay, this is enjoyable. This is fun, because they have good chemistry and it shows and it's enjoyable. But again, the movie as a whole bombed.
Right.
And even though she was a redeeming quality, it wasn't enough to make up for the sins of the script, of the movie. So there's that. Have you ever seen Amadeus?
No.
Okay.
Wait, is that
the only movie that they've made about Mozart?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that actually in my music appreciation class.
Oh, you saw the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That movie was one my mom had gotten it from the library. She saw it and she wouldn't let me see it when I was younger, but then I finally got it from the library a couple weeks ago and I finally watched it all the way through. Great film. Great film. But again, you don't hear about it talked at all. I know it's a little bit older. And the funny thing is, the guy that plays Mozart is the voice of the Hunchback from the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame. But to contrast, this is a movie that is based on history, yeah. But it's such a good film. It's beautifully shot. The story is history, quasi-history. And it's just a beautiful film, but nobody ever talks about it. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, separates the two. And I think that's why, like you said earlier, why people are more willing to shell out money for a franchise movie, because they feel that they're safe within the confines of this thing that they've built, so that even though the movie stinks, watching the character is enough to make up for the shortcoming. For me, that I think that's true to some degree, but even with me, I can acknowledge a bad film when I see it. Case in point, I love Jack Sparrow. I will watch anything Jack Sparrow is in, but even I can agree, and I'll have you know that I don't own On Stranger Tides. That's the only Pirates movie I refuse to own, because it stinks.
Right. And you know, that's the same way with me. Like if there's like a comic book movie or whatever, and if I know that it's garbage, I won't go out there and
Can't force it.
I won't go out there and buy it. Just because I'm a comic book fan doesn't mean that I need to go out and buy something that's out of garbage. Whenever I can go on ahead and watch something that's actually good.
I bought X-Men Origins Wolverine. I think it was for like $2. And I bought it for this reason. The movie in and of itself is not a bad film. The third act of this movie is what is bad. Because you have all this buildup, you have a really nice story. I liked what they did. You know, they actually showed us him going through history, which arguably would have been the better movie, is him fighting in the different wars throughout history, with Sabretooth. But the setup was good, and the fact that you're seeing these characters on screen, and the promise of Deadpool that was shattered in the third act, was enough for me to buy it, and I enjoy it, even though I don't like the third act at all. And I think the third act is just awful and not good filmmaking. I can watch the first two acts and say, okay, this is fun. I like it.
Well, for me personally, with the Wolverine thing, I just didn't like the fact that they had to put cameos for every character in there just to have them in there, and they didn't even serve a purpose at all.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure
didn't like the CGI Patrick Stewart either.
Well, to me, it would have worked perfectly if they took out the Blob and they took out the other one, the other, not Gambit.
You're talking about the guy that
Was
teleported?
in the rink with was in the rink with the Blob.
Yeah, the teleporter.
Right. It would have worked much better if they took those two characters out and instead of having them, put Gambit in that place.
Yeah.
And let him have a longer screen time and just have that one character. Have that one character. That way.
And do justice to Deadpool.
Well, you can have Deadpool and you can have Gambit.
Right.
And you can have them two bouncing off each other if they didn't sew his mouth shut.
Right.
That would have been the perfect movie.
Because you can do a PG-13 Deadpool, and it wouldn't suffer that much. And case in point, you need to watch those animated Spider-Man, at least one, the one with Deadpool. I'm going to send you a link and see if I find it, because it'll prove my point. And when you watch it, you'll actually enjoy it, because they do a good job with it. It's a G version of Deadpool. It's something that's doomed to fail, but it's done so well that it's enjoyable. So a PG-13 version can work. They just completely destroyed anything that they had going for Deadpool and X-Men Origins Wolverine in the third act. And why? Here's one of the my pet peeves about the character. Not so much they sewed his mouth shut. I thought that was a kind of funny joke, but why would they give him Cyclops vision and the two adamantium swords coming out of his arms?
Like, if you looked at the dude from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, like Baraka. And
Like
I'm like, why would you? Why?
I was like, am I watching Mortal Kombat or am I watching a Wolverine movie?
I know, it's like I was expecting them to go and fight.
Finish it.
But and the choices that were made, I can see, they wanted to be original, they wanted to show the character, but they wanted to do a spin on the character. It failed. And I don't know how they didn't show this to how they have test screenings before the movie comes out.
This is what I found out.
Okay, enlighten me, because I don't know how this movie didn't just get you fail from a test screening.
I actually watched an hour interview off of Collider Heroes, and they had the writer from Deadpool on the show, and he said he got a call from Fox one day whenever they were doing the Wolverine, and he said, "We want to let you know we did something different," and he said, "Explain." Hold on. He's like, "Tell me what you mean by different." "Oh, you'll see in the movie, and you're gonna love it." He said,
Sure.
so he goes and sees this thing. He goes, "What did they do to my character? They butchered my character. They have no clue of what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do. They don't know they don't know the humor of the character.
No.
They keep his mouth shut. He's the merc with the mouth. He doesn't shut up. And you did something that I loved with my character." No. So finally, what they do is they sit down with Fox. This is like last year, before it went into production and all that stuff. They give him a call and goes, "Look, we want to apologize for the horrible mess from Wolverine, and we want you to come into the studio, and we want you to sit with our people and tell us what we need to do right." So, so this is what he does. He goes in there and goes, "Nope, that's not what Deadpool does. No, that's not what Deadpool does. No, no, no. Yes, 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 yes. No." Throws that out. Goes, "Done." And that's it.
It was the end of the conversation.
Yeah, that was pretty much the end of that conversation.
Mic drop. Just
And they
boom.
fit 75% of what was in that script onto the screen. And look how it turned out with 75% of it being on the screen.
They should do that with Dark Phoenix too.
Right.
Oh, Dark Phoenix. Oh, why did they try? Because here's the problem I have with, and I do enjoy the Last Stand. Here's the problem I have with it, other than the fact that it breaks continuity.
I have my pet peeves with this, so I'm gonna.
Oh boy. Here's the problem I have, and I think it encapsulates everything else. They tried to do two separate stories.
They're trying to put
Last Stand.
one thing.
Huh?
They're trying to mix stories into one movie.
Right. They tried to mix the Dark Phoenix saga with Mutant Cure.
No.
You need 3 movies for the Dark Phoenix saga alone to actually get us to the point where we get it. You can't just shove it in there.
Right.
Not only that, but you can't have it then. If it would have had just the movie about the Dark Phoenix saga, it would have been okay. But no, they had to shove all that into one movie, and also they're like, you know what? That's not enough. What are we gonna put in there? Oh, Mutant Cure into the movie.
Right. Well, this is my pet peeves. Okay? That was done wrong. They never focused on Jean Grey at all. They never really focused on her at all, other than the love interest of Wolverine and Cyclops fighting over each other. But
yeah, which was 2 scenes, one of which was Famke Jensen trying to take off her clothes in front of Wolverine.
Right.
Okay. And then the petty fighting between Cyclops and Wolverine, which I thought was actually funny.
Well, okay. This is another pet peeve. I was excited for Juggernaut.
Oh
my god, they're about to reveal him. They're about to reveal him. All of a sudden they reveal him. Yeah, okay. Womp, womp, womp. Fake muscles. You look like a turtle with a little helmet on. And then they didn't even do anything with the gemstone, because the gemstone is what gives him his power.
That's what he looked like.
Right. But, you know...
Yeah, and the Sidorak, nothing with Sidorak, nothing...
Well, here's another thing. Juggernaut's power is powered by the gemstone.
Right.
He's only a 120-pound guy. Once that gemstone is removed. That kid, that little bald-headed kid that came from Last Airbender, would not have stopped him. he would have actually put him through the wall because his power is powered by the gemstone. He's not a mutant. So therefore they have no clue.
Okay, all right. Now we're gonna do skit time with movie critic Rob. Here is what happened after X-Men: Last Stand. Hi, Brett. This is the director of The Happening. I really like what you did with that little kid, with the guy, the one that took away all the mutant powers. And you see, I want this kid to play the greatest character in TV of almost all time. I want him to play The Last Airbender. So we'd like you to come over and show us who that actor is, so that we can. That's what happened. That's what happened. M. Night Shyamalan called Brett Ratner and was like, "Hey, let me have this kid," because I mean they look exactly alike. I had to do it because I'm like, I need to do it. But yeah, and I agree with you that they undermined yet another character because they didn't know what they were doing, and it almost makes me want to quote the line from Jurassic Park from Ian Malcolm, like, before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well, it was crap. And that's what happened. Is X-Men: The Last Stand. Another prime example. Also X-Men Origins Wolverine, where you destroyed the funnier version of Wolverine, who is awesome in his own right and is not just the funny version of Wolverine, but you're destroying all of these characters for the sake of dinero. And it's just awful. And they did the same thing with Fantastic Four. The only reason why Fantastic Four didn't make any money is because Fantastic Four never makes any money, because they never know how to treat the characters. The only thing I will say this, the only character that I feel has been done right in the entire, all three movies and the two different iterations, is Reed Richards.
True.
In the old one. That dude was born to play Reed Richards. Young was born to play Reed Richards. And the way they did him in the movies was perfect. But and the only reason why Fantastic Four failed and X-Men and those awful X-Men movies didn't, is because you had an established base, you had an established characters. X2 was one of the best superhero movies, and is one of the best superhero movies out there. So they were like, okay, you know what? We have the fan base. They're going to come and watch it anyway. So, you know what? We're not going to do anything with these characters. We're going to completely overhaul anything these characters stand for. And you have the two bombs. Well, yeah, the two bombs before Four Stick of Fox, which were Last Stand and Wolverine back to back.
Exactly. And they treat their audience like they're stupid.
They treat the fanboys like they're stupid.
Right.
Because I know that a movie doesn't just survive on the hardcore fan base, but you have to acknowledge them. And I think again, not going. I go back to Deadpool a lot because the marketing in this movie is excellent. They marketed the movie for the fans, to atone for the egregious sins committed in X-Men Origins Wolverine. And here's what happens. And here's why I think it was a successful. They made double the highest projections of that Fox had for this film. For this reason. If you make a movie for the fans will go out and get you mainstream audience. Why? Because you have proved to them that the character they so loved deserves to be watched. And the fanboys are going to be your harshest critics, because that's what we do. And rightfully so. We love these characters. And we think that if you're making them, then you should have a passion for the characters too. Thank you, Tim Miller, for showing us that again. Thank you, Joss Whedon, for showing us that. Thank you, the Russo brothers, for showing us that. Because when there's passion behind it, we can tell. And here's what we do. we go, hey, you know this movie called Deadpool? It's awesome, and it actually shows you the character right. You remember all that nonsense in X-Men Origins Wolverine? All that's done with, and there's your mainstream audience, and there's your $135 million.
But
The highest grossing, the highest opening of any X-Men movie.
agreed.
Ah! And the proof is there. But, you know, and I'm hoping that because of what happened, the people that are the top dogs over there can interpret what happened correctly. Because I don't want them to like all of a sudden start getting ideas. Oh, we have to make every movie rated R. That's not
Truly.
that's not the key.
Well, you saw my rant.
That's not the key. Because you don't do Squirrel Girl and do rated R Squirrel Girl, because that doesn't work. Now Wolverine 3 rated R, that works, especially because Old Man Logan.
Right.
I like it. Just don't do it for the same reasons you did Deadpool. Because Logan is not the potty mouth that Deadpool is, or all that, you know. So I hope that they interpret the why correctly. Right. And the next movie's coming up, whether we actually get an X-Force with Wolverine and Deadpool, or whatever happens after Gambit and Apocalypse, will be proof of that they've analyzed what happened with Deadpool well, and they've acted on it well. So that's what I'm hoping for, because right now Fox is hit or miss with their comic films, and off of the heel of Fantastic, only by the love of the fandom that was devoted to making this movie did we get the awesomeness that was Deadpool. You had the two spectrums at play, and we showed you what we loved.
Right, exactly. But that's pretty much all that I have to add to what we were talking about, too. I mean, we pretty much summed that up pretty well.
I mean, it kind of helps when you've been talking about it for 3 years and everybody's calling you a heathen and all, you know, like, oh, you stink, oh, you're this, oh, you're that. Oh, you idiot!
So you saw my rant earlier. You saw my long rant.
Well, I knew. Here's the and I've said this a million times. The desire behind why the movie is made will show me how good the movie will be. Think about that.
Right. That's true.
Joss Whedon had a passion for the Avengers. Even Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron, what ended up happening was too much got cut, and we didn't get a completed story, and it was kind of jumbled. But it was still a good film. Avengers was a perfect comic book movie. Dark Knight was a perfect comic book movie. Why? Because you have a guy that understood your characters. You had a fanboy who wrote your script, David Goyer, and you turned out something that is not only considered a good comic book movie, but a good film. Same with Deadpool. And I'm willing to put Deadpool in that category for those reasons, because you took a character and you elevated it to something because you love the character. And that's why, because everybody was like, oh, Heath Ledger's going to stink as the Joker. Oh, Heath Ledger's going to do bad. And oh, Ryan Reynolds is going to stink as Deadpool because look at what happened with Green Lantern. And
right.
And next we have Ben Affleck. And from what I've seen in all the trailers, only the parts relating to Batman. I mean, the rest of it looks cool. But the parts relating to Batman alone tell me he's going to knock it out of the park. I may be wrong, and the trailers can be misleading, but from right now, this is going to be the year of redemption for not only Ryan Reynolds, but for Ben Affleck.
Exactly. And even the people that want to hate on him, it's going to hate on him anyways, because they have nothing else to do with their lives but to hate.
Well, I mean, I haven't heard a negative comment after Deadpool came out as far as Ryan Reynolds is concerned.
Well, I'm talking about Ben Affleck.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm waiting until the end of of March when the movie comes out, and I'm
Well,
ready for all the haters to be silenced.
I know for a fact that there's a lot, and I'm friends with one of the haters, but um, but that's besides the point because I know he's gonna hate on it regardless of how good it is because all he's gonna do is just trash talk it because as soon as he goes and sees the movie, that's already implanted in his head. All the negativity or whatever that he has about it is not gonna be checked out the door.
Yeah.
The negativity is gonna be in there with him, and he's gonna criticize it for what it is.
And I will say this: I was not the big okay. I had my reservation. Let me put it this way: I had my reservations about Ben Affleck
I remember.
playing Batman, understandably so.
Right.
But I was willing to wait, and I had reservations, and my reservations for Jared Leto's Joker are not on the basis of whether or not he could play the character. It was more on the basis of the look of the character I didn't like. I still don't really like it, but now having seen some clips from the trailer, I'm willing to give him a chance.
Right.
But yeah, and I wanted to clear that up. My beef with Leto and his Joker is not him playing the Joker or his characterization or any of that. It's more of this. I didn't like the look from the first image, and I don't really like him going forward. I like that he's wearing suits, but I didn't like that whole aesthetic they were going for. I still don't, but I'm willing to give the character a chance. I didn't think Ben Affleck could pull it off, but now as I'm seeing more trailers and just the Batman stuff, I think he's got it in the bag. But I'm willing to wait. And like I tell everybody, you should, if you're on the fence about something in the movie world, wait, watch it, and then give your criticism, or at least wait until a couple of trailers come, because then you get a good sense of what's going on. And I mean that last trailer just blew it out of the water for Batman. Oh my gosh, it's like I was watching an Arkham game.
Exactly.
Oh man.
But
Oh man. But again, I mean, and let me draw another comparison going back to the initial argument. They're making an Angry Birds film.
yeah, I saw the previews.
It was funny, and I hope the movie's funny. I'm probably going to go see it. But how is that going to edge out an original movie? Why would it ever edge out an original movie? Because you have a fan base built in, whereas an original movie has to earn their fan base from that one get-go. And I think a lot of viewers today, I may be wrong, just general consensus, what I think. And that's not me, and it's not a lot of people I know, but I'm saying general audience. They don't want to spend the work of getting engaged just for one film, for a one-off, where you have a world where you can get engaged and stay engaged in that universe for years on end. I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe started 8 years ago, and it's going on till at least 2021.
It's going up to 3 phases right now.
So yeah, and I mean we've had 12 films up to this point. We'll have 20 some odd films by the time 5 years comes around. So I think that's the main catalyst of the whole argument is, are people not wanting to get engaged into a character for one movie, where when they have the chance to get engaged into a character or into a story or into a universe for a long period of time and stay with that engagement, stay with that involvement. Whether or not a particular movie in that universe stinks, they're willing to pardon it because it's part of that universe.
Exactly.
So that, okay, the desire of seeing your character on the screen is enough to pardon it. Now, like we mentioned, there are some notable movies that disagree with this, and the proof is in the money. Fan Forstic, Green Lantern, to name a few. But generally speaking, I think that's the case. Though we don't want to get engaged as a movie going audience for one film. when we can do it for a dozen films or whatever.
Different genres of film. Different genres of film, not just.
And yeah, and that too, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe the whole superhero genre is no longer a self-contained genre. It's going beyond the superhero name and going into, like, we're going into crime thrillers and political movie, and and it branches out beyond that. So I think that there is a strength in that, whereas a original idea can only be one thing.
Right.
Only ever be one thing.
Right.
But you can have your characters go into different genres, do different things in that same context. I mean, look at Iron Man 1 was a business type film. It was more it was the quintessential superhero film. Iron Man 2 was more a commentary on like technology and where technology could go, and Iron Man 3 was a buddy comedy. You had all that in one trilogy of one character, not to mention the movies that Iron Man's been in other than that. So there is a case to be proven here for that, and I think that's where the proof is, and that's what the whole argument centers on, is that right there, because you have a lot more opportunity to spend with that one character throughout movies, whereas this other character over here, you're only going to see him once and that's it. San Andreas is a good example of that. I know now they're making a sequel. I don't know how or what they're doing for a sequel, but that was a great movie that it did not, you didn't hear about it at all because it's stifled in between the nonsense of all the superhero movies. Well, not nonsense, but the whole grandeur of the superhero movies. But that movie was excellent. It was extremely well written. It was fun. It was a callback to the disaster films of the 90s, like Twister and Volcano, and it was a good film. But we barely hear about it today. So,
all right.
Anything else?
No, that's it. That's pretty much all that I had to say about everything earlier.
Okay.
As far as what we were basing our video off of.
Yeah, I think we had a good discussion. I mean, we went into a lot of different.
Went into a lot.
Well, we used the argument to springboard to a lot of discussing a lot of different movies, which I think helps because you're analyzing even what failed, but even regardless of whether or not it failed, it still made a lot of money. So there's an argument there. So I think it was good. I think that it was a discussion worth having, especially now that the superhero craze is in full swing, and now you have 3 studios that are going at it neck and neck for the next 5 years. So it was fun.
It was lots of fun. I enjoyed it.
All right, well, let me sign us off. And this has been Movie Critic Rob of the Movie Channel with John DiGregorio of Movie Lovers Unite. Thank you so much for joining us with this discussion. And please, let's continue the discussion below in the comments section. Watch the whole discussion and let us know what you think. We want to know whether you think that our argument has credence or where you side on in this argument. What do you think? What are your thoughts? We'd love to hear from you. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fancy nonsense, and tune in for more coming to you real soon. Thank you, and goodbye.